You've been lied to about confidence. Not once, not by accident, but by design. Every time you hesitated before speaking, every time you apologized for existing a little too loudly, every time you swallowed truth because silence felt safer, that wasn't a flaw in your personality. That was the result of a system that engineered your obedience. You were trained to be liked, not respected. To be agreeable, not assertive. To be digestible, never dangerous. And the worst part, you thank them for it. Confidence, real, untouchable confidence, was never supposed to be yours. Because true confidence isn't what self-help told you. It isn't a feeling. It's a weapon. And you were disarmed before you even knew you were born holding it. Most people won't finish this video. They'll get uncomfortable, triggered, defensive. They'll claim, this is too dark, too manipulative, too cynical. But you're still here. Which means you're ready to see confidence not as a virtue, but as a form of power. The kind that rewrites rooms. The kind that bends outcomes. The kind that gets what it wants, without ever asking. So let me tell you what they didn't. Confidence, the kind that makes people follow you, doesn't come from loving yourself. It comes from understanding one principle. Perception is more powerful than reality. And no one understood that more than a man they told you not to trust. Niccolo Machiavelli. The name alone sends shivers down the spines of the morally naive. But we're not here for morality. We're here for clarity. Because the prince didn't teach evil. It revealed the rules of influence, stripped of illusion. And in a world obsessed with authenticity, you're about to learn the real game is about control. So before we begin, know this. This isn't self-help. This isn't motivation. This is mental restructuring. A cold, clear blueprint to becoming so confident you're no longer safe to ignore. Are you ready? Then let's begin with the first lie you were taught to believe. That confidence comes from being good. No. Confidence comes from being feared a little and needed a lot. Let's go deeper. Let's start where your confidence was first surgically removed, the classroom. Think back. You were 5, maybe 6 years old. Bright-eyed, energetic, instinctively expressive. And then the training began. You were told to sit still. Raise your hand to speak. Ask permission to use your own body. You were punished for challenging, corrected for leading, and rewarded for compliance. They called it discipline. But it was indoctrination. By the time you were 10, you had already learned that confidence, real confidence, was disruptive. By high school, you were fluent in one lesson. Blend in, or be broken. The bold kid, called arrogant. The curious kid, called annoying. The outspoken girl, too loud. The assertive boy, a threat. So you adapted. You dulled your edges. You became palatable. And then you grew up, wondering why you hesitate before speaking. Why you shrink in rooms where you should expand. Why you perform like ability instead of commanding presence. This wasn't a mistake. This was strategic. Because confident people are dangerous. They're harder to control, harder to predict, harder to monetize. And if you think religion spared you, it didn't. You were taught humility meant invisibility. That power was prideful. That silence was sacred. You were taught to wait for rewards after death. Confidence in the now. That was vanity. That was sin. So you swallowed your voice. Again, and again, and again. But here's where we pivot. Here's where we reclaim it. Because there's a reason Machiavelli was banned, burned, and buried under centuries of misunderstanding. He said something that shattered the illusion. It's better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Now pause. Most people hear that and recoil. They think cruelty, tyranny, sociopathy. But that's not what he meant. What he meant was this. People respect what they can't predict. Confidence is not loud. It is not charming. It is not even likable. Confidence is the ability to walk into a room, say nothing, and still alter the energy in it. How? By behaving as if nothing in that room can take anything away from you. Not approval, not attention, not validation, nothing. And here's the Machiavellian twist. You don't have to feel confident. You only have to act in a way that others associate with power. Because people don't follow confidence. They follow the behaviors that signal dominance. So if you're still waiting to feel ready, stop. Readiness is a myth. They told you to wait for it, so you'd never move. The powerful don't feel ready. They act. And they act in a way that forces the world to respond to them, not the other way around. Mid-roll hook. You're not shy. You were trained to submit. And they used your politeness to strip your power. Let that settle. You were taught that controlling others was wrong. But look around. Everyone who moves the world does exactly that. Politicians, influencers, CEOs, leaders, they aren't the kindest. They're the most convincing, the most anchored, the most unshakable. Confidence is not about being right. It's about speaking as if being wrong doesn't diminish you. Because here's the secret they'll never teach in school. People don't follow truth. They follow certainty. And Machiavelli knew. Certainty is a performance. Confidence is a script. You've been reading the wrong lines your entire life. But that ends now. Because in the next section, we'll go deeper into how covert behavioral dominance, not self-belief, creates attraction, fear, and loyalty. And once you learn to master it, you will become dangerously irresistible. Confidence is not a feeling. It's not warmth. It's not comfort. It is the weaponization of presence. Let me explain. When you walk into a room, your body arrives before your words do. Your posture, your pace, your silence. These things speak far louder than whatever noise you choose to make. But here's the twisted truth. You were never taught to command. You were taught to ask for space. So you enter like a question mark, curled in, eyes darting for cues, shoulders apologizing for being visible. That's not confidence. That's survival programming. Let me give you the reframe. The world doesn't reward value. It rewards perception of value. Confidence is nothing more than projected certainty in uncertain environments. And here's where Machiavelli cracks the code. He wrote The Prince not as a theory, but as a manual for ruthless survival. In it, he exposes the uncomfortable truth. Morality is optional. Perception is not. In a world where you can be judged in under 3 seconds, you don't have time to be confident. You must appear confident instantly. So how do you do it? You use behavioral dominance. Let me give you 3 tactics. Stillness over fidgeting. The confident don't rush. They don't seek approval through movement. They own time. Direct gaze, no apology. Most people break eye contact because they're asking subconsciously, do you accept me? The confident hold it, as if to say, decide fast. I don't have time to wait. Low reaction threshold. The world cannot manipulate a person who doesn't flinch. The more reactive you are, the more programmable you become. Confidence isn't loud. It's unshakable. Now you might ask, but what if I don't feel that way? Good, because feeling has nothing to do with it. Confidence isn't authenticity. It's authorship. You don't wait to feel powerful. You behave powerfully repeatedly until the world recalibrates around your new signal. And eventually, your nervous system follows. Because here's the Machiavellian trick. Behavior shapes identity faster than belief. Act confident long enough, and your mind will cave in and follow the body. This is reverse engineering at its darkest and most effective. But let me go deeper. Mid-roll psychological hook. You've been taught to express yourself, but never to control others. That's why you're invisible. Read that again. You express your truth, your thoughts, your needs. But that's not what confident people do. They don't just express. They influence. And here's the truth they don't want you to realize. Confidence that doesn't influence is decoration. Confidence that manipulates is power. Let me be blunt. If your confidence doesn't bend the will of others, it's noise. Which leads us to a painful but necessary understanding. Confidence is a control interface. When mastered, it doesn't just change how you feel, it modifies the behavior of those around you. Your boss listens longer. Your peers defer subtly. Your enemies hesitate. Not because you're aggressive, but because you radiate one silent message. I will not collapse under your discomfort. And that right there is where your entire psychology must pivot. From people-pleasing to presence dominance. From hoping to be liked to expecting to be watched. You don't need everyone's acceptance. You only need them to feel your gravity. Let's go deeper. Niccolo Machiavelli never wrote for the masses. He wrote for rulers, for the ambitious, for those who didn't want to be good but wanted to be effective. You're here because you've started to suspect that your kindness has been used against you, that your humility has been misread as weakness, that your voice has been heard but not felt. This section will hurt, because now we unveil the mask. Most of what you were taught about confidence was designed to keep you under control. Smile more. Don't interrupt. Be approachable. Tone it down. Don't be too much. Every single one of these rules trains one thing: submission. And they sold it to you as virtue. Meanwhile, the truly powerful, the elite, the cunning, the feared, have been playing by a completely different playbook. Let me show it to you. Level 1. understand the game is rigged for visibility, not virtue. The confident aren't elevated because they're right. They're elevated because they act like they belong at the top. They speak first. They take space. They take credit. They take risk. And the world responds. Because the human mind is primitive. We are still wired to follow the one who seems to know where they're going, not the one who waits to be chosen. Confidence hacks the tribal instinct. If they act like a leader, maybe they are one. That's not enlightenment. That's neuroscience. Level 2. Weaponize ambiguity. This is where it gets dark. Machiavelli understood something psychologists only prove centuries later. Mystery amplifies perceived value. You want to appear confident? Say less. Reveal less. Smile less. When people don't know your full hand, they assume it's powerful. The need to explain, defend, or prove is the death of confidence. Power doesn't explain. It implies. Don't justify. Don't overclarify. Don't apologize when silence would do more damage. If you walk into a room and say nothing, but your body radiates, I know something you don't. People lean in. People chase. Now the darkest level. Level 3. Use controlled disdain. This is advanced. Dangerous. When used wrong, it makes you a villain. When used right, it makes you unchallenged. Controlled disdain is the subtle rejection of what others seek approval for. It says, what you value, I do not need. This triggers status collapse in others. Because when you're unfazed by trends, flattery, social rules, you ascend from participant to architect. This is what Machiavelli meant by fear. Not terror, not brutality, but the psychological edge that says, I cannot be influenced by your need for harmony. That is the foundation of dangerous confidence. And here's your turning point. Confidence, you now realize, is not personal development. It is social engineering. Confidence becomes dangerous the moment it stops seeking acceptance. This is where most people stall. They begin the journey thinking confidence is about getting better. Better habits, better communication, better posture. But better isn't dangerous. What's dangerous is unpredictability. Let me explain. The predictable person may be liked, but they're never feared. And without fear, or at least the possibility of it, your confidence has no edge. Machiavelli knew this. In The Prince, he writes, a wise man ought always to follow the paths beaten by great men and imitate those who have been supreme. This isn't about copying behavior. It's about adopting posture. So ask yourself, who do you act like? Whose blueprint are you unconsciously running? Because the confident, the truly confident, are not derivative. They are designed, intentionally. And that brings us to the mindsets Machiavelli whispered to the powerful, the ones history feared to repeat. Let's break them down. Mindset 1, you are not equal. Equality is a political ideal, not a psychological reality. Confidence dies when you walk into a room and mentally flatten yourself to the same level as everyone else. This doesn't mean arrogance. It means internal hierarchy. The moment you perceive yourself as equal in all things, you've given up the right to lead. Confidence says, I am here to shape the room, not blend into it. If that thought feels unnatural, it's because your programming wasn't built for power. But now it must be. Mindset 2, mercy is a tactic, not a virtue. They told you to be kind, that people will like you more, and they will, until you stop giving them what they want. Machiavelli was clear. It is much safer to be feared than loved when you have to choose between the two. Notice the precision when you have to choose. He never said always be feared. He said that fear must be an option. Because mercy without the capacity for harm is not virtue. It's powerlessness dressed in virtue's clothing. You cannot be truly kind unless you have the ability to withhold that kindness. Confidence becomes magnetic only when people sense, this person could crush me, but doesn't. That's the edge. That's the tension. That's the trigger. Mindset 3, reputation is leverage, not identity. You were taught to be yourself. But yourself was shaped by the approval of people who were never powerful. So when Machiavelli says, a prince must be a great pretender and dissembler, he isn't endorsing deception for its own sake. He's pointing out a brutal truth. Authenticity is only as valuable as the results it produces. When confidence becomes real, it creates outcomes. Not just impressions. It gets promotions. It attracts loyalty. It commands attention. If being real isn't creating leverage, it's not confidence, it's ego. The Machiavellian mindset says, you are whoever you need to be for the room you intend to dominate. Now let that settle. Because if your identity is rigid, your power is limited. Mid-roll psychological trigger. They told you to be yourself because yourself is predictable. And predictable people are easy to control. This is where the awakening begins. Your self-image must be redesigned as a tool, not a prison. Confidence isn't a trait. It's a mode, activated when necessary, adjusted to the environment, refined by result. Which brings us to the next evolution. If you've ever wondered why some people just have it, why rooms tilt towards certain individuals before they even speak, it's not energy. It's not charisma. It's structure. It's the way they condition the environment to respond to them. And in the next section, I'll show you how to install that very conditioning into your daily life so that you stop chasing validation and start attracting submission. Confidence isn't what you feel. It's what other people feel around you. If you internalize this, you unlock the most dangerous truth of all. You don't need to change how you think. You need to change how others think about you. This is the turning point. Now we leave theory. Now we enter manipulation architecture. Because every room you walk into is programmable. People are scanning for power, status, direction, safety. They don't realize they're doing it, but they are. Your job, as someone becoming dangerously confident, is to feed that unconscious scanning with the exact signals that say, I lead, you follow. Let me show you how. Signal 1, controlled scarcity. You speak when you choose. You move with intention. You're available, but never accessible. You train the environment to experience shortages of you. Why? Because the human mind associates scarcity with value. When you withdraw your attention strategically, when you leave early, when you pause before responding, you condition people to work for your engagement. This isn't game playing. This is psychological scarcity bias, leveraged as social capital. Signal 2, command voice, not opinion voice. There are two types of speech patterns. The permission-seeking voice, which ends in upward tones, tentative phrasing, soft qualifiers. The command voice, which states things as inevitabilities. Example, I think we should maybe consider another direction. Versus, this direction will produce better results. The first voice asks for approval. The second assumes leadership. Use the second. Relentlessly. Even when you're uncertain, speak with precision. Because people trust certainty over correctness. This is why confidence, even when wrong, wins more than self-doubt that's accurate. And Machiavelli would smile at that paradox. Signal 3, dominance. Here's where it gets primal. Sociobiologists found that dominance hierarchies are established rapidly, within seconds, based on visual cues. If you can train yourself to not break eye contact under tension, you will subconsciously assert hierarchy without saying a word. This takes conditioning, not motivation, not belief. Conditioning. Practice holding gaze through discomfort. In silence. In conflict. In decision-making. You're not proving anything. You're demonstrating one message. I do not flinch when the world blinks. When people feel that around you, they submit without knowing why. And once you've programmed enough rooms to respond this way, you will experience a shift. Confidence won't be something you try to generate. It will become the default expectation of those around you. Because you've done what the masses fear. You've stopped managing comfort and started engineering control. And in the next section, we'll begin the deeper unraveling. How dangerous confidence doesn't just affect strangers, but reshapes your closest relationships, rewrites sexual dynamics, and fractures manipulative power over you permanently. You've entered the inner chamber now. Do not exit. By now, you've started to feel it. That subtle shift. That quiet recalibration of how you see yourself and how you expect others to see you. This is the fracture point. Because true confidence, dangerous confidence, doesn't just change how you move in crowds. It begins to alter how you exist in intimate proximity. And that's where it becomes the most potent and the most feared. Let's talk about relationships. Because confidence doesn't just change how others treat you. It changes what others can no longer get away with. And that scares them. People who once relied on your compliance, your silence, your addiction to their approval, start to sense that something is missing. That leverage they had, gone. You've stopped apologizing for your standards. You've stopped justifying your expectations. You've stopped explaining why you want what you want. And that, to the manipulative, is terrifying. Because here's the truth Machiavelli never wrote explicitly, but knew instinctively. Confidence breaks manipulation by making shame ineffective. Let me repeat that. Shame is the primary tool of control in close relationships. They don't need chains. They just need to convince you that wanting more is selfish. Wanting space? Disrespectful. Wanting clarity? Insecure. Wanting authority? Toxic. But confidence, real confidence, laughs in the face of emotional blackmail. It says, you don't get to define how much of me I give. That's sovereignty. That's the apex of internal power. Not dominance for the sake of it, but refusal to negotiate your sense of self just to keep fragile people comfortable. Now, here's where it gets ruthless. The confident become mirrors. When you stop seeking approval, you reflect others back to themselves. Their insecurities become louder. Their games become obvious. Their attempts to provoke reaction fail. And they'll call you cold, detached, unreachable, arrogant. But what they're really saying is, I can no longer manipulate you. And that makes me uncomfortable. Good. Let them be uncomfortable. Because the relationships that survive your confidence are the ones that deserve your energy in the first place. You don't lose people when you become confident. You lose control systems. And that's liberation. But now, let's get darker. Confidence doesn't just protect you from control. It allows you to create influence so potent, people mistake it for gravity. That's what Machiavelli understood. Powerful people don't chase. They make others orbit. Let's break that next. Dangerous confidence isn't passive. It pulls. It distorts. It reorganizes social physics. People begin to look at you longer. Speak more carefully. Ask fewer questions. Give more compliance. But they don't know why. They say things like, there's something about you. You're just different. I feel like I should listen to you. This isn't luck. It's construct. Because when you step out of the frame of likability and into the frame of magnetic control, something profound happens. Your existence begins to demand attention without performing for it. You've stopped being the entertainer. You've become the attractor. Here's how it works. Confidence sends two subtle signals constantly. I don't need you to complete me. I may choose you or not. This creates an addictive uncertainty. Why? Because humans are wired to desire what isn't guaranteed. Let me give you a principle so sharp, it cuts through all dating advice, social training, and communication fluff. Certainty reduces desire. Ambiguity inflames it. This is how confident people generate tension without manipulation. They remain unavailable in just the right way. Not distant, not cold, just undecided. The room wants their approval and doesn't know how to get it. This is Machiavellian seduction. Not through flattery, through selective attention. Give someone 80% of your presence. Then withdraw slightly. Observe how hard they work for the 20%. It's brutal. It's real. It works. Because in every social interaction, there's an invisible negotiation happening. Who will chase? Who will wait? Confident people wait. Because they've realized something devastatingly powerful. The person who needs less wins. And once you stop needing people to like you, you become the person they obsess over. This isn't theory. It's observable. It's testable. And once it's yours, you can't go back. Because confidence becomes addictive when it makes you immune to being emotionally blackmailed. You don't flinch when people withdraw. You don't chase when people go silent. You don't panic when you're misunderstood. You stay calm. Still. Dangerous. That's why confidence, in its truest form, is mistaken for mystery. It's not that confident people are hiding something. It's that they don't volunteer themselves. They make you work for the deeper access. And the more you work, the more valuable they become. Now here's the dark twist. Once you realize that confidence manipulates perception, you begin to see that influence isn't accidental. It's manufactured. And the people who understand this run the world. They walk into rooms expecting the room to respond. And it always does. Because they've done one thing you're now learning to do. They've removed the need to be liked and replaced it with the certainty of their own gravity. In the next section, we go full scale. We examine how confident people construct predictive dominance, how their behavior trains everyone around them before they speak, and how you can begin building that aura starting tomorrow morning. We've crossed the threshold, from philosophy to psychology, from strategy to structure, from feel confident to become unignorable. By now, you've detached from the myths. You no longer see confidence as a feeling, or a reward, or a costume. You're beginning to see it for what it really is. A training mechanism. The confident don't just express power. They install expectations in others, silently, preemptively, and permanently. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Everyone around you is programmable. The only question is, are you the programmer? Let me explain. Every dominant individual you've ever encountered, from a powerful CEO to a charismatic cult leader, uses the same invisible mechanism, predictive dominance. It's the ability to shape the behavior of others, not through commands, but through subtle conditioning that rewires their responses to you. Before you even speak, before you even enter the room, here's how it works. Humans crave mental shortcuts, cognitive ease. We hate ambiguity unless it's tied to something we desire. So when someone consistently behaves with unwavering self-priority, when someone rewards loyalty, punishes disrespect, and never reacts emotionally, the mind adapts. It says, around this person, I behave differently. That's predictive dominance. You've seen it. The boss no one interrupts. The woman everyone turns to when tension spikes. The man whose silence fills the room louder than speeches. These people didn't earn this influence with words. They built it through consistent behavioral programming. Let's get tactical. Here's how predictive dominance is installed. Rule 1. Define consequences silently. When someone violates your boundary and you smile through it, you teach them that your standards are flexible. When you go cold, withdraw attention or escalate standards. Without drama, you teach them that your world has gravity. That actions have real costs. You don't need to threaten. You only need to be consistent. Confidence punishes disrespect through absence, not argument. Rule 2. Reward precision. Sparingly. When people get it right, when they respect your time, match your pace, bring value. You offer presence, not praise, not performance. You don't over-celebrate normalcy, because when your approval is predictable, it loses value. Confidence creates a variable reward loop, sometimes warm, sometimes detached, always earned. That unpredictability, paired with unwavering standards, creates psychological addiction. People want your favor, but don't know how to guarantee it. They work harder. They mirror more. They become manageable by choice. Rule 3. Be immune to emotional bait. Predictive dominance breaks when you become reactive. Anger, jealousy, insecurity, outbursts. These are signs that your frame has been hijacked. Confidence doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't perform those feelings for validation. When you can sit in silence during chaos. When you can receive insult without breaking eye contact. When you can say, I hear you, and mean nothing by it. You train the room to fear your calm. Because now your lack of reaction is read as strategy, not absence. Let that sink in. The truly confident are not numb. They're selectively expressive. And that makes every emotion they do reveal. Feel rare, precious, real. You're not just a person now. You're an emotional economy. You've stopped being entertainment. You've become environment. And once that happens, the dynamic flips. People ask for your time. They adjust their tone around you. They self-correct before they offend you. This is the core of Machiavellian presence. He who controls the context controls the outcome. And you're about to become the context everyone wants to enter. But not everyone will be allowed. In the next section, we escalate further. Now that you've established control, you'll learn how dangerous confidence is amplified in public, how charisma is manufactured, not gifted, and how to shift an entire room's psychology using nothing but presence. We're entering the performance layer. Don't blink. Public spaces. Most people shrink in them. They look down, lower their volume, adjust to the crowd. They forget that presence isn't internal. It's relational. You are not confident when alone. You are confident when your energy reshapes other energies without needing to try. This is where confidence becomes performance art. Not fake, not deceptive, calibrated, because the world judges you immediately, based on your command of space. So let's break the illusion. That confident person across the room, they weren't born with that presence. They built it, consciously, strategically, using 3 laws. You're about to learn all 3. Law 1. The law of grounded stillness. Nervous people move too much. They scratch, tap, shift weight, fill space with motion. Confident people, they pause, they root, they become still enough to make the space feel like it revolves around them. Grounded stillness is primal. It tells every nervous system nearby. This one does not fear visibility. It's not what you do. It's what you're not doing that creates weight. You don't flinch. You don't fidget. You don't adjust. You own. Law 2. The law of tonal gravity. Charisma isn't loud. It's tonal control. A confident person speaks slowly, clearly, with downward inflection. They speak in statements, not questions. Their voice pulls attention, not through volume, but through conviction. And here's the twist. When you lower your voice slightly, when you hold silence for a beat longer, when your tone suggests inevitability, people lean in, not because they're polite, because they don't want to miss the moment when the dominant energy speaks. Confidence is audio tension. Law 3. The law of visual control. Most people scan a room hoping to be accepted. The confidence scan to assess. You don't search for approval. You observe for patterns. Your gaze becomes surgical. You look without rushing. You connect without pleading. You hold eye contact just past comfort and release without need. This rhythm of gaze, pause, detachment makes you feel unreadable. And people fear what they can't read. They call it presence, but it's just visual power. And once you start applying these laws, the environment changes. People position themselves near you. They mimic your posture. They adopt your speech tempo. You've stopped being reactive. You've become the metronome. And when that shift happens, charisma stops feeling like luck. It becomes predictable, controllable, deployed. Now pause, because what you've just learned has been hoarded by public speakers, performers, military leaders, psychological tacticians. But you're no longer the audience. You're the architect. You've stopped being seen. You've started being watched. In the next section, we take the gloves off. Because confidence, once fully installed, changes the entire trajectory of your life. Career, sex, conflict, opportunity. The world begins handing itself to the man or woman who behaves like they already own it. And next, you'll learn how. What happens when the world starts believing you? Not just hearing you, but expecting you to lead, to dominate, to win. You've seen it before. The man who enters a negotiation and people fold. The woman who makes a single suggestion and the room shifts. The leader who whispers once and nations react. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's the compound effect of dangerous confidence. And here's what no one wants to admit. Once you master perception, the world stops questioning your worth. Because the world, despite its posturing, doesn't reward the most qualified. It rewards the most convincing. Let's talk about leverage. You've now become someone others anticipate, react to, adjust around. That means your time gains value. Your silence gains weight. Your yes becomes rare. Your no becomes final. This is where dominance turns financial. Because when people perceive your confidence as inevitable, they pay for it. Not with compliments, but with compliance capital and concessions. Let me show you how this plays out. You walk into a job interview. Most people prepare answers. You prepare presence. You already know. They don't remember your resume. They remember how you made them feel. So you don't try to fit the mold. You shape the space. You ask them questions. You pace the rhythm. You challenge softly and observe reactions. Suddenly, you're not being evaluated. You're being courted. This flips in business too. The desperate negotiate with hope. The confident negotiate with indifference. You don't need the deal. You offer the deal. This makes people chase you. Because the scarcest energy in any room is certainty. But confidence doesn't just make you profitable. It makes you dangerous in relationships. Because in a world addicted to validation, you become the one person who doesn't need approval. And that creates chaos. People will test you, push your buttons, try to rattle your frame. And every time you remain centered, every time you hold ground or walk away clean, you reinforce the story. This one doesn't play emotional games. This one designs them. You become unforgettable, not because you beg to be remembered, but because you refuse to perform. Confidence reconfigures romantic dynamics. You no longer tolerate indecision. You no longer chase half-interest. You no longer explain your standards, you embody them. That makes people feel one of two things: deep attraction or deep intimidation. Both are useful, because remember Machiavelli's paradox. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. And now you don't have to choose. You become magnetic because you are not afraid to repel. That's what separates the merely attractive from the unshakably desirable. You don't exist to be liked. You exist to be respected, desired, remembered. The world treats you like a king because you commanded it first with behavior. And here's the brutal truth. People are watching you. Even now. Your friends, your family, your enemies. They are learning how to treat you by watching how you treat yourself. So when you speak with finality, when you move with intent, when you look at the world without asking for permission, you install a narrative. This one leads. We follow. And once that narrative embeds, they don't even realize they're playing by your rules. They just do. In the next section, you'll learn how this internal transformation reshapes external conflict, how power repels parasites, how presence diffuses manipulation, and why the dangerously confident are almost never attacked. Because once you radiate unpredictability, you become a psychological risk no one wants to challenge. Get ready. Most people avoid conflict. They fear it, run from it, submit to it, because they've been conditioned from birth to equate peace with safety. But Machiavelli knew better. There is no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others. Here's the truth. If you're not prepared for conflict, you're already losing it. Dangerous confidence does not mean aggression. It means prepared stillness. You don't seek confrontation. But when it finds you, you respond without flinch, without apology, without show. And that, more than anything, makes predators back down. Let's break it down. There are 3 types of psychological threats you'll face as you rise in power: the covert manipulator, the emotional bully, the envious saboteur. Each uses different tactics, but each can be neutralized instantly when you apply Machiavellian confidence. Threat 1. The covert manipulator. This is the one who compliments you before correcting you, who offers help that disempowers, who makes you question your own instincts. They thrive on self-doubt. Your counter? Radical self-reference. You don't explain your choices. You don't defend your preferences. You say, that's what I've chosen. Period. Manipulators starve without control. And when you refuse to be steered, they lose interest. Threat 2. The emotional bully. This is the loud one. The attacker. The one who uses rage, shame, or guilt to push you off center. Your counter? Controlled silence. Let them explode. Let them insult. Let them bark. You stay stone. Because here's the rule. The person who controls their tone controls the frame. When you don't react, their power collapses. And others see it. You're not avoiding confrontation. You're dominating it with restraint. Threat 3. The envious saboteur. This one smiles to your face, supports your success publicly, while poisoning perception privately. Your counter? Elevated indifference. You don't chase rumors. You don't defend your name in every room. You expand. You grow louder, sharper, more precise. Because envy can't breathe in the presence of evolution. You don't fight the saboteur. You outpace them. You become a moving target, faster than their whispers. Here's the deeper truth. The dangerously confident don't need to win fights. They prevent them by broadcasting psychological risk. When people sense unpredictability in you, when they don't know how far you'll go, they hesitate. That's not a weakness. That's a deterrent. You've now become someone others consider twice before crossing. That's power. You're not above confrontation. You're just not available for it. And that aura of quiet volatility is what separates the confident from the untouchable. In the next section, we bring it all together. You'll learn the final integration, how to embody Machiavellian confidence everywhere you go, until it becomes your identity. No more performance, just power. You felt it already. That shift, not just in how others treat you, but in how you treat yourself. Because dangerous confidence doesn't start with charisma. It starts with clarity. Clarity about who you are, what you stand for, and what you will never tolerate again. This is the integration. This is where confidence stops being a mode and becomes a metabolic truth. Let me show you how it looks. You walk into a room, any room, and you are already decided. You don't seek approval. You don't need connection. You don't fear rejection. Because your worth is not requested. It's declared. That's the first level. But the deeper shift? It's in how you handle yourself in private. What do you do when no one is watching? Most people collapse here. They break promises to themselves, negotiate with weakness, justify failure. But the dangerously confident, they don't need a witness. They are the judge, the jury, and the executioner of their own discipline. You said you'd wake up at 5 o'clock? Then you do because you said it. You promised you'd confront that conversation? Then you have it without delay. You no longer seek motivation. You enforce identity. Machiavelli wrote, "A man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything must necessarily come to grief among so many who are not good." Translation: If you rely on niceness, you will be destroyed by those who don't. Confidence is not goodness. It is alignment. Your words match your actions. Your actions match your values. And your values are no longer up for public debate. This changes how you speak. You no longer soften the truth. You no longer dilute your insights. You no longer disguise strength as diplomacy. You say what needs to be said, not with malice, with precision. This creates friction. People will call you arrogant, cold, distant, calculated, good. That's the tax of clarity. You are no longer emotionally available to the uncommitted. You are no longer mentally available to the undisciplined. You are no longer spiritually available to the performative. This is the collapse of false friendships. You stop chasing people who never saw you. You stop explaining yourself to the confused. You stop managing the comfort of cowards. And something incredible happens. The right ones appear. Other dangerous minds. Other clear thinkers. Other iron-willed agents of action. Because the world, in its chaos, still knows how to find a signal. And dangerous confidence. It's a beacon. It cuts through mediocrity, through manipulation, through meekness disguised as morality. And it tells the awakened, this one sees, this one knows, this one is ready. That's who you are now, not because you faked it, but because you finally refused to fake anything else. In the next section, the final one, you'll receive the code, the internal commandments, the final reframing, the rules of dangerous confidence burned into your bones. The transformation ends there and begins again at will. It's time. This is the integration, the final framework, the recalibration of your entire nervous system. Confidence is not energy. It's not enthusiasm. It's not emotion. It's a set of decisions you obey without exception. Here they are. Commandment 1. I obey myself without hesitation. Your first loyalty is to your own instruction. You don't need time to feel ready. You act, then calibrate. Commandment 2. I do not seek softness from the world. You don't expect others to make it easier. You make yourself harder, stronger, cleaner, sharper. Commandment 3. I speak with finality, not apology. Your words don't wander. They land. You don't explain yourself to soothe others. You explain reality once. Commandment 4. I allow people to leave. You do not grip. You do not beg. You do not shrink to be tolerated. The door is open both ways. Commandment 5. I know what I want. You don't wait to be told. You define. You declare. And if you're uncertain, you get certain. Commandment 6. I make people adjust to my pace. You no longer sprint to match the unprepared. You move at your rhythm. And those who can't keep up disappear without mention. Commandment 7. I do not mistake validation for victory. Praise is noise. Applause is temporary. You win by execution, not by opinion. Commandment 8. I reserve energy for results. No more debating dreams. No more discussing intentions. You act, and let the aftermath speak for itself. Commandment 9. I remain unpredictable by design. The enemy can't target what they can't track. You move in silence. Act in surprise. Win in confusion. Commandment 10. I fear nothing more than permission. Because the one who asks is already beneath the one who doesn't. These are not slogans. These are weaponized beliefs. You don't try them on. You live them. Daily. Without performance. Without pause. And in time, the world bends. Not because you asked it to, but because you refused to bend first. This is dangerous confidence. It is not loud. It is not liked. It is not normal. But it is undeniable. And once it's installed, you no longer fear being misunderstood. You fear going back to being controlled. That's over now. You made it. Few do. Most never cross the threshold. They blink. They scroll. They tell themselves they'll come back later. But you stayed, which means something has already changed. And now, for the final revelation. Confidence is not what you think. It's not even what you feel. It's what others perceive. When you've stopped asking for permission to exist. That is the silent trigger. The invisible signal that radiates from your spine. Your gaze. Your voice. Your decisions. It tells the world, I don't need your approval. I am my own consequence. And here's the part they don't want you to know. The moment you stop signaling uncertainty, the world reorganizes around you. People adjust their tone. They change their body language. They watch their words around you. Why? Because they've sensed what even you are still learning. You've become dangerous. Not to others. to the system that fed off your doubt, to the structures that demanded your compliance, to the patterns that once defined you. That's what confidence truly threatens. Not the insecure, but the architects of obedience. Confidence is rebellion. It's self-governance. It's a refusal to be emotionally colonized. And once you step into it fully, there's no going back. You'll start noticing it immediately. In the way people pause when you enter a space. In how silence becomes your ally. In how discomfort bends in your presence. This isn't magic. It's not luck. It's structure. You've been rewired. You've been rearmed. You've been reintroduced to yourself. But now comes the final test. Not everyone should have access to you anymore. You don't teach this. You embody it. You don't explain this. You exude it. People will try to figure it out. They'll ask, what happened to you? Why are you different? Why do you feel intimidating? And you'll smile slightly, because you'll know the truth. You didn't change who you were. You changed who you allowed yourself to be. The others? They'll keep waiting for validation, for consensus, for comfort. Let them. You don't lead a revolution by asking if it's okay. You burn the map. You write your own laws. And you walk the road alone, until others beg to follow. That's the final lesson Machiavelli never wrote, because some truths can't be published. They must be activated. You've activated it now. The world is watching. They don't know why they're watching you. They just know they have to. You are no longer a person. You are a signal. And the signal is clear. Power doesn't speak. It doesn't explain. It doesn't wait. It simply moves. And the world follows, asterisk asterisk. Sleep well. Or don't. Either way, you won't be the same tomorrow. And they won't know what to do with you. Because from this moment forward, you are no longer controlled.